Virgo rarely clicks on videos like this by accident. And if you're still listening after the first few seconds, that's already a sign. Because what this video is about is not something Virgo usually wants to face. It's not about failure. It's not about mistakes. It's not about the things that went obviously wrong. It's about the one thing Virgo keeps doing that looks like growth, feels like responsibility, gets praised as maturity, but quietly becomes their deepest regret. Before you go any further, do one thing. Don't listen to this casually. Don't skip ahead. Stay until the end, because this is one of those realizations that only makes sense after you hear the whole picture. Virgo will never regret trying. Virgo will never regret caring. Virgo will never regret wanting to do things right. What Virgo will regret is how often they assume the problem was themselves, even when it wasn't. And the dangerous part is this. Most Virgos don't realize this while it's happening. They realize it years later, when something inside them feels empty, exhausted, and strangely disconnected from the life they worked so hard to build. If you're a Virgo, or if you've lived your life by fixing yourself first, adjusting yourself first, questioning yourself first, this video isn't here to comfort you. It's here to show you the pattern you've been trapped in without naming it. Because the regret I'm about to talk about doesn't come from doing the wrong thing. It comes from doing the right thing for too long at the cost of yourself. Virgo does not regret failure in the way most people do. Failure is structured. It has causes, variables, and solutions. Failure gives Virgo something to analyze, something to improve, something to fix. In many ways, failure feels safer to Virgo than uncertainty, because at least failure can be worked on. What Virgo will eventually regret is far more subtle than failure and far more dangerous, because it hides inside what everyone else praises as strength. Virgo will regret how often they assumed the problem was themselves. From a very early point in life, Virgo learns that being correct is rewarded, that being composed earns approval, that being useful makes them valuable. So, when something feels wrong, when tension appears, when relationships become uncomfortable, Virgo's instinct is not to accuse, resist, or withdraw. Their instinct is to adjust. They lower their voice. They soften their reaction. They replay conversations in their head, searching for the moment where they might have said too much, felt too deeply, or wanted something unreasonable. This habit forms quietly, but once it forms, it becomes a core identity. Virgo becomes the person who keeps things stable, the one who notices details others miss, the one who absorbs emotional mess so things don't fall apart. People come to rely on this version of Virgo, and Virgo takes pride in it because it feels like proof that they are mature, dependable, and emotionally intelligent. But here is the first crack, the one that usually goes unnoticed. Virgo is so focused on correcting themselves that they rarely stop to ask who is correcting the situation around them. They become experts at emotional self-management, but beginners at emotional self-protection. When something hurts, they don't treat that pain as information about their environment. They treat it as evidence that they need to improve. If a relationship feels unstable, Virgo doesn't ask whether it is unsafe. They ask what they are doing wrong inside it. If someone pulls away, Virgo doesn't ask whether that person is incapable of showing up. They ask whether they asked for too much. If boundaries feel necessary, Virgo wonders whether they are being too rigid, too sensitive, too demanding. This is not because Virgo lacks self-worth. It is because Virgo believes that harmony is something you earn through effort. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, pain stops being a signal and starts being a personal failure. This is where the second emotional layer begins to tighten. Virgo tells themselves they are being patient, but patience slowly turns into endurance. They tell themselves they are being understanding, but understanding becomes self-silencing. They tell themselves they are growing, but growth begins to look suspiciously like shrinking. Their emotional world becomes a constant process of editing, filtering, refining, not to feel joy or safety, but to avoid disruption. And here is the dangerous part. Other people feel this. They sense it, even if they don't consciously name it. They learn that Virgo will carry the weight, that Virgo will explain instead of confront, that Virgo will stay reasonable even when something is deeply unfair. Over time, effort becomes one-sided, not because others are cruel, but because Virgo makes it easy not to try. Silence turns into expectation. Flexibility turns into entitlement. And Virgo, without ever deciding to, becomes someone who is valued for how little space they take up. The regret does not appear suddenly. It does not arrive during a dramatic argument or a public collapse. It arrives quietly, usually during a moment of stillness, when Virgo finally has nothing left to optimize. They look back and realize something unsettling. They have done everything right, and yet something essential is missing. They don't feel chosen. They feel accommodated. They don't feel deeply known. They feel managed. They don't feel loved for who they are. They feel appreciated for how convenient they make life for others. This is the moment where the story shifts, because Virgo begins to see a pattern they were too busy fixing to notice before. They see how many times they explained instead of expressing, how often they apologized instead of being defended, how many instincts they overruled because they trusted logic more than intuition. And the most painful realization settles in slowly but firmly. They were not fixing themselves to become healthier. They were fixing themselves to be allowed to stay. That is the regret, not the effort itself, but the reason behind it. Virgo believed that if they stayed calm enough, correct enough, reasonable enough, love would remain stable. They believed clarity would protect them, that logic would keep them safe, that being the bigger person would eventually lead to balance. But love does not stay because someone is correct. Love stays when someone is allowed to exist without constantly negotiating their right to be human. This is where the third emotional layer opens, and it is the most frightening one. There comes a moment when Virgo stops asking how to fix the situation and starts asking why they are the only one doing the work. This question is destabilizing because it threatens the identity Virgo built their survival on. If I am not the fixer, then who am I? If I stop adjusting, will anyone stay? If I allow myself to be inconvenient, emotional, imperfect, will I be abandoned? This fear runs deeper than rejection. It touches something existential. Virgo has tied their sense of belonging to usefulness, their sense of safety to self-control, their sense of worth to correctness. Letting go of that feels like stepping into the unknown without armor. And yet, this is also where healing begins. Because Virgo slowly learned something that contradicts everything they were rewarded for. Not everything that feels wrong needs to be corrected. Some things need to be left. Some relationships don't need better communication. They need boundaries. Some environments don't need patience. They need distance. And some versions of the self don't need improvement. They need permission to exist without justification. Virgo does not need to become softer, quieter, or more reasonable. Virgo needs to become more honest about what hurts, even when that honesty disrupts peace, even when it disappoints people, even when it risks loss. The truth is this: the real mistake was never imperfection. The real mistake was believing that perfection was the price of belonging. Virgo will regret many things in life, but the deepest regret will always be this: they spent so much time trying to be right that they forgot to ask whether they were happy. And the moment Virgo stops fixing themselves for approval and starts protecting themselves with truth is the moment their real healing finally begins.